Just wanted to do this quick video on why I prefer buying units over houses. Now me and my wife have an 11 property portfolio which we've built over the last 3.5 years, and for most that's a pretty short time span to build an 11 property portfolio that's worth $4 million. And if we bought houses, there is no way we would get the property portfolio to the size it is in terms of value or size it is in terms of actual assets we own. Additionally, our property portfolio is cash flow positive, so it doesn't cost us money to hold it. It actually gives us money, and additionally, I keep saying additionally, it has huge capital growth. And actually, it's funny because people think buying units you don't get capital growth, you get cash flow. The reality is, if you know what you're doing, if you understand market cycles, you can get both cash flow and a lot of capital growth, more capital growth than even the best performing houses in Australia. And what do I mean by that? I mean like a 15% capital growth year on year. That's how much capital growth. So yeah, a lot of people actually just prefer buying houses over units, which is fine. And just think about that for a minute. And a lot more people prefer home ownership over investing. And that's also fine. But you've got to ask yourself, like, what are you trying to achieve? And if you're trying to achieve home ownership, like as quickly as possible in terms of like 1, 2, or 3 years, then probably buying a house is the best option for you. But if you want to generate long-term wealth, if you want to generate a passive income stream, or potentially wait a bit longer, say 10 years to buy your dream home, then investing is probably the route for you. And then you've got to ask yourself, when investing, what am I doing it for? Am I doing it for because I want to have trophy houses, like houses that are fancy and look nice and I can show everyone, or am I buying properties to build wealth to get to my goal as quickly as possible? Now, if your goal is to get to wealth as quickly as possible or create wealth as quickly as possible, you may have to reconsider what type of assets you're buying or what framework you're buying your assets under. And if you want to think through it as a professional investor would, think about this. What is my cash on cash return on this asset? What is my cash flow on this asset? And what is my capital growth potential on this asset? And if you're using purely those 3 foundational principles, then you're thinking like an investor. Alternatively, if you're just thinking emotionally, you'd be thinking, I want to buy a house because somebody told me at a barbecue houses go up in value and units don't. So that's not how a professional investor would invest. And somebody thinking like that probably won't get very far in terms of investing. They might get 1, 2, maybe even 3 properties, but not 11 and not a $4 million portfolio. So without further ado, I just wanted to get into what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, which was the 5 reasons I like investing in apartments better than houses. So with a large portfolio, one of the killers in owning, or the struggles with owning a large portfolio, is ongoing management of the portfolio. And how do you mitigate this? You mitigate this, and this is not one of the points, but you mitigate this by getting a good property manager. And I go on about this on and on again. But basically, what we're doing today is we're just comparing houses to units. And the first reason I like buying houses over units is because there's way less maintenance involved. So effectively, it's far easier to manage, far less stressful. And I just want to give you a story about the first investment or the first property I ever purchased. I got some tenants in there. They moved out. They trashed the place. I then had to paint the whole thing. It also had external landscaping issues I constantly had to tend to, whether I'm paying money to fix a gate or paying money to put some more soil in the garden bed that had been dug up somehow, or what else? What else? What else? What else? Basically, with houses, there's just far more that can go wrong. Far more that can go wrong, and it's if you have a unit, it's just you've got way less chance of things going wrong, just because there's essentially less things for a tenant to break. The second one was it's far easier, and this is something you need to adopt if you are a person that doesn't have an unlimited income, or let's just call it a huge income, personal income. If you don't have a huge personal income and you want to build a large portfolio, then buying properties that are positive cash flow is almost a must if you want to build a substantial portfolio that can potentially get you to retirement as quickly as possible. Buying cash flowing positive properties is 100% necessary. Otherwise, as I said, you'll get stuck at 1, 2, or 3. And finding positive cash flowing apartments is far, far easier than finding positive cash flow houses. It's you've got to go super, super duper regional if you want to find a house that is positive cash flow in some town that only has, say 2,000 to 10,000 person population. And I don't mean positive cash flow after tax. I mean pre-tax positive cash flow, right? And what's the third point? We're moving on. So it's a little bit different from before the first point. The first point was they have less maintenance. Now the third point is similar, but it's different. And this is usually why people don't like apartments, because they have a strata or a body corporate, which is a fund you have to put money into to maintain the property long term and short term. And the reality is, if you own a house or if you own any investment property, there is going to be maintenance costs with that property, whether it's a house or a unit. And the only difference is, if you own a house, the maintenance fee, it won't be a fund that you put money into every quarter or every year. It would just be like a huge cost to you that will come out of nowhere that you will have to pay for. Like, the air conditioning will break, or the roof will start leaking, or there'll be some sort of water leak in the bathroom, or whatever. And instead of you having to personally orchestrate that entire process and handle it and stress out about how you're going to get the roof repaired, and trying to organize quotes to get the roof repaired and all that sort of stuff, you don't have to think about that at all, because the strata management company that manages the complex, if you buy apartments, will handle that for you. So people always, you can get apartments with very high strata fees, and I would say avoid them, but unless the numbers work in terms of does the property positive cash flow. But yeah, if you can find an apartment with a low strata cost, the reality is, if it was a house, you would pay that cost one way or another anyway, because the problems are inevitable. So I have an 11 property portfolio. If there's any major issues with my apartments, it doesn't concern me at all. I honestly couldn't care less. Like, the strata will handle that from the strata bills that I pay. So that's point 3. Point 4 is, in terms of scaling a property portfolio, if you're buying apartments, the numbers are far easier to crunch. It is far easier to crunch the numbers and project what is going to happen with the property in terms of how much it's going to cost and everything. yeah, because the reality is every house is sort of somewhat different, and it will effectively have different costs involved with that. But like when you compare it to apartments, crunching the numbers, you can pretty much, there's only a few variables from apartment to apartment when you're crunching the numbers. And if you're trying to build a large property portfolio and you're in the acquisition phase of your portfolio, crunching the numbers quickly is paramount to like building a fast property portfolio. And I recommend building your property portfolio fast in the accumulation phase. And point number 5 is the last point. And the more properties you have, the more options you have. Say if you just have one property that's $1 million, you can either refinance that one property or bump the rent up. And if you don't, you can't do those two things, you can't really do anything. But if you have, say, 4 properties that are worth also $1 million, apartments, you've got the chance to refinance 4 properties. One val might not come back good, but the other 3 might come back good. So meaning you can move forward. There's more options for you to move your property portfolio forward. And that's also 4 rents that you could potentially, that could go up in market value. So that's 4 chances for you to increase your rental income on your portfolio. So that's the 5 the 5 reasons I like investing in apartments better than houses. Hopefully this helped, and give me a like if you enjoyed this. Bye.